Today on Landline, the program giving people a taste of the farming life.
Knowing that I have their support at the end of the day makes me feel welcome.
Farmers feeling the pain of rewiring the nation.
This has been a spectacular fail in terms of community negotiation and engagement. The trust is so broken, I don't know how they'll get it back.
And repurposing old wool tables.
When they come in, they're rough as guts. You turn them around, you go, wow, that's gone from being in a wool shed to now a dining piece.
Hello, I'm Pip Courtney. Finding and keeping staff is one of the biggest problems plaguing agriculture. Producer organisations are using online platforms to match staff with employers, as well as addressing agricultural education in curriculums. The National Farmers Federation is also coordinating a paid gap year on farms to try and expand the workforce. Here's Landline's Courtney Wilson.
Hey, look up, hey, push past him. Hey, push up.
New job jitters aren't uncommon, but when your office is the cattle yards and your offsiders are unpredictable, nerves are understandable.
I remember the first day I wasn't even in the pound. I was just bringing them up from the backyards and I was shaking, my heart was racing. I think I went home and I said to Dad, I don't know how they do it. Like, how do you overcome this fear, you know?
18-year-old Tash Handford from Queensland's Sunshine Coast is taking a gap year on a farm. The teenager with no experience working in ag has had to face her fears head-on, especially when it comes to handling cattle.
Because I was so new to it, I just didn't understand how you overcame it. But then, yeah, just getting involved, like, just practice makes perfect. And I'm not perfect by any means, but definitely you sort of get to know them and what they're going to do.
While Tash has been getting to know her way around the farm's owners, Bruce and Viv Hutchinson, have been getting to know her, and they've been impressed.
Everything she does, she embraces, which is good. She's confident. If we ask her things, she never says no or gets sour. She'll do it.
Bruce and Viv Hutchinson have always lived and worked on the land. They farm across multiple properties in central Queensland and the North Burnett with their children and their families. They graze cattle and grow crops, have a feedlot and a contract to supply beef to Coles. It's a busy life, made busier by the fact that for years they've struggled to find and keep staff.
We've been trying to get extra staff to help us for 3 years, and it's nearly impossible to get permanent staff.
In Australia, agriculture employs almost 250,000 people and contributes more than $90 billion to the national economy. But finding and keeping workers has long plagued the sector.
Most people would be familiar with the workforce challenges we experience in agriculture, and the Ag Career Start program was born out of this recognition of a need for a young talent pipeline to come into our industry and specifically create a way for people with limited experience to have a go in agriculture in a really supported environment.
Ag Career Start is an initiative of the National Farmers Federation. It's a paid gap year program for young people interested in working in agriculture but who don't necessarily come off the land.
They can't be what they can't see, and they really struggle to find a way into agriculture even if they have got the desire.
The program matches participants with farmers. Its coordinators do the screening and matchmaking. Host farms are vetted to ensure they're equipped to host inexperienced young people.
And then on the participant side of things, when they apply, they tell us what kind of farm industry they'd like to work in, whether that be cattle, whether that be aquaculture, it could be cotton, you name it. We work across many different commodities.
When Bruce and Viv heard about the program, they thought they had nothing to lose by giving it a go.
I've always wanted to give a young person out of the city a chance to see what we enjoy and love. And I thought, well, this is our chance.
For someone who didn't grow up on a farm, it's been a big learning curve for Tash.
Tash had never driven a tractor before.
Yep.
And we brought her over here a couple of months ago and said, "You got to drive this tractor." And she said, "Oh, never seen a big tractor."
Yep.
So she hopped on it, took it to her like a duck to water.
G'day.
Hello.
Let me come and check out your office for the day,
More
hey?
than welcome.
What was it like the first time? Was it a bit overwhelming to come and do something like this?
Not really. Like, you get your head around it pretty quickly. Like, it's pretty easy to understand the GPS and everything like that.
Like much of farming, operating heavy machinery is risky, not to mention the price tag on some of these farm vehicles.
You know, she's on a $500,000 tractor. So you've got to look after it and respect it. And anything goes wrong, stop.
Luckily for Tash, there's plenty of time to finesse her tractor work.
She'll start here about 7 in the morning and she'll go till dark. And she takes her lunch with her. And no, she's working out well.
Bruce, checking the mail. We get a lot of mail.
It's a big responsibility hosting a young person, especially when the work requires living somewhere remote. Inevitably, that means long hours spent together. And the farmers themselves become a key support system for those they're mentoring.
I can't overstate how important it is to open your farm gate and provide some time and mentoring to a young person. There are young people out there who want to work in agriculture. They just don't know how to get in. And Bruce and Viv are doing this really amazing thing in opening their door.
Tash has worked closely alongside both Bruce and Viv, doing all types of jobs.
She helped brand and all that type of thing, drafted cattle, and she was fine with all that.
She was timid around the yards to start with, but that's just getting confidence, as you said. Now she's quite confident in the pound.
What, go one more?
For every skill mastered, there's another new one to learn.
Yeah, we taught her how to strain a fence, and we've done some fencing at home with cementing steel posts in, and she's done a bit of welding. I think the young people are that used to using their fingers, using their telephones, driving the bobcat or the ride-on mower, the zero-till lawnmower. It just comes second nature to them.
But this paddock, we've just had it levelled, so it's really compacted down. Yep. And so it can get real hard to grip.
Do you feel like that Bruce and Viv are the kind of people that have a lot to teach? You know, that there's a lot to learn from them?
You can tell they've got a lot of knowledge and they want to share it, they want to teach, and I'm very lucky to be where I am.
This is the second year of the Ag Career Start program. The first intake saw 28 young people complete their on-farm gap year. More than half have stayed on in their roles, and the remainder have gone on to some agriculture-related study. Even though the program is growing, the problem it's targeting is much, much bigger.
It's difficult to put an accurate figure on it because of the nature of the industry. Farmers often try to make up the differences themselves by working longer hours or calling on family for help. However, across the entire food chain, it's estimated the workforce shortage is more than 170,000 jobs.
Some people go down the backpacker trail, and without backpackers, they could be really desperate. We've tried the backpackers, and we'll probably go back that way again, possibly. But they're not permanent, and we all need permanent staff.
The reasons behind the labour challenges plaguing agriculture are numerous and complex. In central Queensland, like many resource-rich areas in Australia, trying to compete with the high wages on offer in the mining industry is next to impossible.
It is certainly a problem, but we have found with some of the employees we've had, it's not money that attracts them, they want to be there. And some of the people go in the mines, hate being in the mines, but they like the money. But we sometimes see the opposite.
Viv Hutchinson believes education opportunities in ag are key to attracting and keeping young people in the sector.
We've lost our ag colleges where children could go to, and both our boys went to ag college, and not long after Stuart went, they started closing them down, which is such a shame because you've got to foster them and get them to love what we love and enjoy what we do.
There has been effort made to coordinate a national approach to putting more of an emphasis on agriculture in education. Earlier this year, a high-level ag roundtable sparked the start of a working group dedicated to getting food and fibre education at a national level in schools across the country.
Would you undo that before you put the strainer on?
I would.
While an inexperienced teenager may not be the recruit Bruce and Viv had in mind for the shortages on their place, Tash is working out well, providing not only a much-needed extra set of hands, but also an open mind and a passion for the industry.
It's just about pivoting their mindset and going, okay, maybe I could train someone up to be exactly what I would like them to be in a few years. And our last cohort has shown us that they will stay if you give them the right opportunity.
Ag Career Start is funded by the federal government, but at this stage, only for another year. The NFF and host farmers like the Hutchinsons are pushing for an ongoing commitment.
We're going to need federal government funding to keep it going. But we're hoping that one person that we get might talk to someone else and get two people. So it just might multiply.
State agricultural bodies are trying to help. For example, the Queensland Farmers Federation this year launched its online portal connecting farmers and potential job seekers in farming and ag. There are similar platforms right across the country. For Tash Hanford, the appeal of living and working somewhere like this is obvious.
I think being away from the busy city, being able to get back and just enjoy the simple life and do work that's rewarding.
Tash still has several months remaining in her on-farm gap year, but beyond that, she's not looking to leave the sector anytime soon.
They've welcomed me with open arms and it's made the whole journey that little bit easier. Knowing that I have their support at the end of the day makes me feel welcome.
I hope she keeps embracing it and there's plenty of opportunities in ag. They'll just have to be on a farm.
Agronomists, there's just so many things that you could stay in ag with.
So I'd like to think Tash will stay in ag and embrace it, and the way she's appearing now, I think she will.
An exotic mushroom farm is taking shape inside one of South Australia's most iconic manufacturing sites. The former Holden car plant is now turning out masses of oyster mushrooms. And as Landline's Kerry State reports, while the company behind it has big plans to expand, it's also facing significant challenges.
Ken King is rarely without his torch, because when you're growing mushrooms, you have to pay very close attention.
This is a biological warfare. You've got about 2,000 or 3,000 competitor funguses that are trying to get in and eat your food. There's these challenges, this little game goes on with you and the mushrooms. It's like, did I get it right? Did I not get it right? And when you get it right, it is just razzmatazz.
Before the mushrooms moved in, the cars moved out. The site at Elizabeth, north of Adelaide, used to be home to Holden's manufacturing plant, which closed in 2017. 10 months ago, the doors of the old parts warehouse reopened. Look at that! To reveal one of the biggest exotic mushroom farms in the country, run by the Epicurean Food Group.
So we are in the middle of floor-to-roof mushrooms here. I mean, do you have loads of these rows?
So we have 6 rooms this size.
And how quickly do these mushrooms grow?
So from the time we make the block to the time we finish the crop is 504 hours, or 21 days. They double their size generally every 24 hours, but if you get the conditions just right, they can double their size in 8 hours.
What are the just right conditions? Is it a tricky thing to manage?
Autumn. Autumn in a rainforest is what you're looking for. We rely upon a massive quantity of fresh air. So we've got to change the fresh air in a very short piece of time frame to get it to be what we want it to be. When you get it right, the mushrooms go nuts.
Ken built his first commercial button mushroom farm at just 21, after growing up in the horticulture industry. He moved on to farm everything from microgreens and tomatoes to edible flowers, before getting into making air sterilisers. When COVID hit and business slowed, he and partner Leanne, who is a scientist, went looking for something new.
I wanted to go and do simple things like lettuce. Lettuce is fun. But nobody wanted lettuce.
He asked the fruit and veg people what they were missing. And they said oyster mushrooms. And it wasn't just those people we asked other people, and they kept saying exotic mushrooms. So I was like, oh, well, that's it then.
After establishing a small farm on the Fleurieu Peninsula, the couple was approached by major wholesaler Costa to go bigger, which led to this.
The first farm we were able to produce, or we could put in, of these little blocks that we have here, we could put 600 a week in. This farm here loads 20,000 a week. So it was a bit of a step.
And is this where you thought that was going?
No, no. Ken's idea of scale is a lot different to mine. I'm laboratory minded. We downsize, we don't upsize.
While the old car manufacturing site was not his first choice, he was quickly won over by what was already in place to support the mushroom making process.
It offered all of the things that you would traditionally go to government and ask for. Roads, power, water, facilities, infrastructure, parking, you name it, all those things.
So what's the biggest cost in running a place like this?
Power.
Okay.
Power by far. It defeats everything. Labour, second to that. Grain. Now, the grain for the spawn has become very expensive. We were paying 2 years ago $150 a tonne on farm. Today we're paying $11.50 a tonne.
While labour is often a challenge in horticulture, Ken King says he so far hasn't had any trouble finding staff because of the urban location and consistency of mushroom farming. And while he may have designed a fair bit of this farm himself, it needs a lot of hands from start to finish to make it work.
Mushrooms is very disciplined, very disciplined. There's no, oh, it'll be okay, we'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. It's a 504-hour cycle. And if the minute you step off that, the system falls down.
And this is where that system starts. In the middle of all the action is a lab where mushroom cultures, which are added to the straw blocks, are produced. Ken King says while most large-scale buyers want oyster mushrooms, the company stocks more than 30 different types of exotics and is planning to diversify. The next one they're keen to move beyond the trial phase is lion's mane, which has been shown in some studies to improve cognitive ability.
If I have 4 conversations about mushrooms a week, 3 of them are about lion's mane.
While the company is also buying in some mushroom spawn during the startup phase, Dr. Leanne McGrath, who is the chief science operator here, says having the ability to do everything on site is crucial going forward.
When you get to a larger scale like this, you really need to have all the ability to twist and pivot with what the mushrooms are doing and what the marketplace is doing.
At the other end of the operation, hotel chef Nick Thulsall is on a mission to attract new consumers to oyster mushrooms.
So what are you cooking up here?
We've got the Moroccan mushroom sausage here.
Are you trying to make a mushroom product? Are you trying to make something that tricks you and you think it's actually a meat product? Are you trying to go in between?
What we want to do is be in direct competition with the faux meat market, but not representing something as faux meat itself. We want it to be unmistakably mushroom, but at the same time, we want it to behave the way a normal sausage would. Are you hungry?
Yeah, can I have a taste?
Absolutely.
I want to see how it plays with my mind because I'm still going, sausage!
Okay.
Oh. I bet that was graceful. Oh yeah, it's like a little milder. It's it's milder than I thought.
Yes.
It feels softer.
Yes, a little bit softer. It's the moisture content.
Well, the good news is I'm going back for more.
Absolutely.
While the company's range of sausages are in the final stages of development, its burger patties are already sold in several hundred independent retailers, providing an alternative market for fresh mushrooms that don't meet supermarket specs or are in oversupply.
The market changes so quickly and you can't foresee it. It changes by the weather, what people are celebrating, where they're at. So if you don't have a fresh product along with a value-add product, something that's funky, something that's fresh, you don't appeal to the different audiences, you wither. You wither and die.
Ken King knows all about changing markets. Hype around the alternative meat market has died down in the last 2 years, scaring some investors off. Then there's the cost of living, which is forcing him, along with many other food producers, to discount fresh and value-added lines to keep customers coming back.
The homicide squad is now investigating the deaths of 3 people from suspected mushroom poisoning in
Ken King says consumers are also more cautious after 3 lunch guests recently died in Victoria from suspected mushroom poisoning.
It's a worry. There's a huge investment here, and if we have a downturn because of some other event that's beyond our control, it hurts and it worries us.
Cash flow is a challenge, and after initial filming finished, 2 workers who have since resigned approached Landline, claiming wages were sometimes late and staff were owed superannuation. Ken King says super has now been processed as part of the end of financial year accounting, and says the company has only paid wages late once.
We are a start-up, Kerry, and cash flow is a very, very difficult thing. When I knew that was going to happen, I went to the staff, I explained to them one-on-one myself, and they understood what I said. They all had an opportunity to speak to it. And as far as I was aware, they were all happy. Obviously not.
It's not unusual for a start-up business to find it tough, and it's a tough time, but people's brains will go, is there a danger? Is there any danger of this business closing?
The people who have backed me will continue to back me. I've had long conversations over the last few days. We aren't going anywhere. We've invested a lot of money here. This infrastructure is good to go, so we're not in a position to stop. We'll just keep pouring in until we get it to where it needs to be.
And this is where he says it needs to be.
So what is this?
So, Kerry, this is the old paint shop where all the Holdens were painted. This is the next phase, the future of our business.
I mean, it's absolutely huge. How much bigger is this than where you are at the moment?
So this is 25 times the size of where we are today.
What does that mean production-wise for mushrooms?
So we currently produce 15 tonnes a week. This building allows us to produce 45 tonnes a day, 7 days a week.
So how are you going to stay on top of that? It's not like mushrooms grow slowly.
So a significant amount of automation, predominantly conveyors, some robotics, some clever engineering. We'll do what we can, but there's still a human element here as well.
I mean, what are we looking at, the cost of this?
250 million.
Are you confident of getting that funding?
As confident as you can be in the current climate. Solid business, good product. We should be able to achieve it.
The bulk of the mushrooms that come out of here, where are they going to go?
So the plan is that 95% of the product will go to the value-add division to make further product, and 5 to 10% will go into the fresh market, depending on the demand.
OK, so it's not suddenly the market's going to be flooded with mushrooms coming out of here?
No, there's been a lot of speculation about what we do. That's never our plan. Our plan is to make food.
Food that will hopefully be powered by waste.
So you obviously produce a fair bit of waste. What do you do with it?
So at the moment, we return it to the farms via the environmental composting facilities.
OK. What about when you're that much bigger?
So then we'll turn it into our own biogas in our own biogas plant.
So you are going to use this to power your facility when it's that much bigger?
Absolutely.
The whole facility?
The whole facility.
The experienced grower and builder has a lot of runs on the board. This project is taking things to a whole new level. But while it wasn't quite what his partner had in mind when she got into mushroom farming, she reckons it's far more than a pipe dream.
I was blown away like everybody else was when I first heard what was in his head.
Coming up, new life for old shearing shed wool tables.
Even the fella who made it back in the day, he would have thought he would have laughed at me if he had a time machine and said, you know, these were never going to be dining tables, mate.
G'day, I'm Kath Sullivan. It was set to be New South Wales' largest and most expensive water security project. But after 4 years of delays, the state government has now axed the expansion of Wyangla Dam near Cowra. The project was promised by the former coalition government in 2019 and would have raised the dam's wall by 10 metres, doubling the amount of water it could hold.
The final cost of delivering this project was likely to be over $4 billion.
The environmental impacts on the Lachlan River, both upstream and downstream, would have been extreme if the dam wall was raised.
Farmers who backed the expansion are outraged.
At the change of government last year, I was very sceptical that it'd ever get up. You know, there's no votes out here for the Labor Party.
The state government says it'll now prepare a water strategy to try to identify other options to improve water security. Still in New South Wales, where the bee-destroying varroa mite is continuing to spread. The number of infested premises is now more than 275. The Kempsey cluster now makes up more than 1/5 of the total number of cases detected since the mite was first reported in Australia in June last year. To the Barkly region of the Northern Territory, where interstate firefighters have joined the effort responding to a major bushfire. The fire began to the southeast of Tennant Creek, and at one stage the front stretched almost 150 kilometres. More than 1 million hectares have burned since the fire began. It's been a year since the federal government brought unions and the farm lobby together to try to find solutions to worker shortages in the agriculture sector. It's unclear what it's achieved, but the National Farmers Federation says it's been worthwhile.
It's brought three really important organisations and parties together, government, unions and employers. Has it achieved everything it set out to do? Probably not. So any time that we can come together and try and reach agreement on some of these complex issues, it's worth having a crack at.
The working group was announced at the government's Job Summit, a time when an industry alliance claimed to be 172,000 workers short across the food chain, including jobs in farming, transport, retail and hospitality. And finally today, some of the finest minds working in regional Australia have been acknowledged at this year's Rural Women's Awards. Victorian flower grower Nikki Davey took out top gong in a nod to her work promoting Australian grown, while Michelle Leonard from New South Wales was runner-up, an acknowledgement of her work connecting remote children with culture through choir. Michelle hopes her award will shine a light on the importance of the arts outside capital cities. For another week, that's Landline News.
The federal government's multi-billion-dollar plan to rewire the nation will require a vast new network of high-voltage power lines to be built. But community opposition to new transmission projects has been identified as the biggest threat to Australia's renewable energy transition. With costs and frustrations growing, some states have begun paying compensation and federal authorities have launched a wide-ranging review into how these projects are approved. Here's National Regional Affairs reporter Jane Norman.
Delivering power to the people, a vast new network of transmission lines is beginning to snake across the country. The arteries of Australia's energy system are being rapidly rebuilt. But people power may bring this expansion to a halt.
We have barred access.
We haven't yet felt comfortable to allow access.
That's our only card we can play.
Within sight of the Victorian-New South Wales border, Daniel Linklater's surveying the massive new towers on his property, Trentham Station. Standing tall on dry land cropping country, the high-voltage transmission line is one part of a 900-kilometre energy superhighway.
Certainly in our case, it hasn't impacted at all. In fact, in December we were harvesting right alongside where they were boring holes for the to concrete the bases for the new towers, so it's worked quite well.
2 years in the making, Daniel Linklater says he's satisfied with the consultation process and was able to secure a fair one-off payment from Transgrid for the acquisition of the easement. But he gets why other farmers feel differently.
This line is on large-scale properties, pastoral country. It's not the same impact visually or aesthetically for communities. So I think we're talking very different projects and impacts. But yeah, certainly, as I said, I would encourage everybody that's concerned to ensure that that they are consulted properly, and that when it comes to hosting these transmission lines, that they extract every penny.
The energy market operator has mapped an extra 10,000 kilometres of transmission lines that'll need to be built by 2030 to connect far-flung renewable energy projects to consumers as coal-fired power stations close. This project, Energy Connect, is the first and currently the only so-called priority project under construction. Others have stalled, facing deep grassroots resistance. In the front line of the transmission war is the proposed Western Renewables link.
Here you go, Gussie. What do you reckon? Potatoes!
The Myers family farms seed potatoes near Ballarat. There's not a high-voltage power line in sight around here, but AusNet plans to build one. When land agents knocked on Catherine Myers' door 3 years ago, she says she was offered a gift card in exchange for access to the farm.
I'm a pretty trusting person. I thought, that makes sense. They can come out and do it. And my father-in-law actually went through the agreement. He said, no, this is actually providing unfettered access for 4 years for both surface but also invasive surveys on the property. So that $500 gift card was to allow them 4 years of free access to our farm.
It was the beginning of what she describes as a nightmare and a sham consultation process, during which locals say their concerns have largely been dismissed.
There was a real challenge in getting quality information out of the company to landholders. They'd often speak to the media first and then put things up on their website and then come and speak to the people that were directly affected. We were desperately hungry for information, and it was really difficult to get good, solid quality answers out of the organisation.
Landholders have protested loudly, but their pleas for existing power lines to be upgraded instead, or for the new ones to be built underground, have fallen on deaf ears.
This has been a spectacular fail in terms of community negotiation and engagement. The trust is so broken, I don't know how they'll get it back.
Signs of deep community opposition to the Western Renewables link are everywhere around here, and it's grinding the project to a standstill. At this stage, it's hard to see the lines being built by 2026 as slated, without the Victorian government using extraordinary powers to forcibly gain access to properties and compulsorily acquire land. Such heavy-handed interventions are exactly what federal authorities had hoped would be avoided, with cost and time pressures climbing on the road to net zero emissions.
There may need to be what they call compulsory acquisition to build easements through people's farming property. That is not a nice thing to have to do, but they're the sort of things that governments are going to have to address.
Within 7 years, the federal government wants 82% of Australia's power to come from renewable sources like wind, solar and hydro, more than doubling the capacity built in the last 20 years. These new transmission lines are crucial to achieving that goal. The Energy Infrastructure Commissioner, Andrew Dyer, acknowledges timeframes are tight.
Well, if you look at the lead times required to get this stuff done, if certain decisions don't happen this year or go into 2024 timeframe, we won't meet the 2030 deadlines.
To help break the deadlock, some states have started offering compensation to affected landholders, in addition to the one-off payments transmission companies are required to make. In New South Wales, $200,000 for every kilometre paid over 20 years. Victoria's offering the same amount, but over 25 years. Queensland's scheme will pay an average of $300,000 per kilometre over 20 years. And in a first, compensation's also available to neighbouring properties.
In a rough calculation, this at least doubles the amount of payment that you would receive as a landholder. So I think it's a game changer, and I'm sure other states will be considering these programs very well.
Across the Bass Strait, the proposed Project Marinus link is also falling behind schedule. Scott Colvin's a second-generation farmer in northeast Tasmania, one of about 80 who'll be affected by the proposed new high-voltage power line.
Tas Networks know they can single us out and they can divide and conquer the group.
Unlike other states, there's no ongoing compensation on offer here, just the one-off payment.
We're not seeking to stop development. That is absolutely not what we're seeking to do. We are seeking to work with the power company, work with the transmission company to get a better outcome for farmers. Why is it that if you get a Telstra tower on your property, you get paid annually for that tower? And if you get a transmission tower on your property that has a far greater impact, you get a one-off government valuation payment. If I was fortunate enough to have a wind farm on my property, if I had the geography for that, I would get paid annually and it would be an asset to the property. If I hold the transmission line through my property that carries that power from the generator, it's a curse to my property.
Tas Networks built a power line across the Colvin's property decades ago and wants to expand that existing easement to build the new one. Dubbed a project of national significance, for Scott Colvin, it'll be a disruptive and costly exercise.
We've worked around their infrastructure for the last 70 years. The minute you step outside the existing footprint, it's a challenge for us. Pivots won't turn. Further down the line, we've got the line crossing milking yards, shearing sheds, sheep yards, people's houses.
Under the initial plan, James Petty would have had to move his purpose-built shearing shed the centre of his prime lamb operation. He managed to negotiate a slight bend in the line that'll cut through his property.
Saying that we're going to wear the cost of this with minimal recompense, it's wrong, in my opinion. Yeah.
The family moved from Victoria to Tasmania nearly a decade ago because of the changing climate. He's not against the renewable transition, but wants assurances from Tas Networks that his livestock and livelihood won't be harmed.
My biggest fear is the construction phase. Once it's here and it's built and you just put up with it, I suppose. He said to me, those issues, they're all micro issues. And I said, well, they might be micro for you, but for me, they're macro.
Perhaps acknowledging these missteps, Tas Networks is taking part in a new training program being rolled out by the Energy Infrastructure Commissioner, whose advice seems pretty basic.
Threatening the use of powers, absolute no-no. You'll get thrown out quicker than you can blink if you threaten the use of powers. And they should be buried in a closet somewhere in the back room, used very sparingly. As I say, it's break the glass stuff. Having all of your ducks in a row before you go out knocking on landholders' doors is a big part of getting social licence right.
People are not there on the land to host energy infrastructure.
Andrew Bray is the head of Realliance, a pro-renewables group advocating for the regional communities bearing the brunt of the energy transition.
I think we are. There's a bit of a learning curve going on at the moment. Like, we haven't built large-scale transmission in the country for some decades, with a couple of exceptions. So transmission planning has taken a while to sort of get up to speed on that, and I think now that a couple of projects have gone out and started consultation, you know, that sort of they've realised that they didn't do some of that early work that they should have, and that would have made life much simpler. There's certainly a broad recognition that from within the companies that they need to do a better job on this.
The political stakes are high for a Labor government that pledged $20 billion to rewire the nation, and the Energy Minister is putting heat on the companies to lift their game.
There's a lot of work to be done, and we're not really at the point where the wheels are really digging in, so we need to get moving, that's for sure.
For now, these farmers are using what power they have to negotiate a better deal.
At this stage, we're denying them access.
When the other player holds the royal flush, it's difficult to have a fair game.
G'day, I'm Matt Brand. Since the 1990s, Australia's sheep industry has faced a number of price slumps, but perhaps none as severe as what's happening now. Here's a look at the National Mutton Indicator, which has fallen 78% in just 12 months, and people are now watching to see if it'll dip below $1 a kilo for the first time since 2007. It's got to the point where the best option for some producers could be simply giving sheep away. A shearer from Dubbo made headlines this week after posting on Facebook that he'd take sheep for free. Now, at this stage, he's had no takers, but if merino ewes keep selling for under $5 a head, that could soon change. There were 14,000 new season lambs for sale at Wagga, but prices dropped by up to $10 a head. What will happen when the spring flush really kicks into gear? We might talk more about this next week. Cattle numbers lifted slightly and prices fell across all categories. In Queensland, processor cows were averaging 20 cents a kilo less than the national indicator, and in South Australia, they're averaging 20 cents a kilo more. In some positive news for the cattle industry, both Indonesia and Malaysia have lifted their suspensions on Australia's live cattle and buffalo trade. There are a number of new biosecurity requirements in place, though. I'm told importers and exporters will meet in Jakarta in the next few days to get a better handle on this situation. And I'm told the feeder steer price to Indo from Darwin remains above $3 a kilo and is expected to climb in the coming months. Meanwhile, check out this Drought Master bull from Queensland, which sold during the week for $320,000, which is a new record for that breed, and it makes it the third most expensive bull ever sold in Australia. Bred by the Glenland stud at Rockhampton, he was bought by a partnership that included overseas interest from South Africa. The wool market enjoyed a lift this week, with all types improving in value, and the clearance rate of over 95% is the highest weekly rate in a long time. AWI says renewed orders from Europe and the subcontinent created some extra competition. In New York, sugar futures continue to rise, and because of the low Aussie dollar, the Aussie sugar price continues to break records. The US Department of Ag's latest outlook has global production of wheat, barley, canola and soybeans all falling. Although when it comes to prices, it seems the market has either ignored the report or it's not a surprise. In Australia, demand from feedlots in the Darling Downs is lifting grain prices in Queensland. It's good news for local growers in central Queensland who have started harvesting their winter crop. GrainCorp has told Landline the first loads of wheat have started to arrive at its Yamala site, and the initial quality, it says, is good. That is the Landline check on prices. Keep it rural.
The centrepiece of a shearing shed is the wool table. But what happens when after decades of service, they're just too old to go on? Meet the country carpenter who, by giving these broken down old wooden workhorses a new life, created one for himself.
The hair stays on. I appreciate you've had a bit on this one.
Jason Porter grew up on the family farm at Cecil Plains, 3 hours west of Brisbane.
Famous.
For him and his 4 siblings, the dining table was the heart of the home. It still is.
A lot happens around that table. There's been times where, Mum and I have had chats alone, about, life and whatnot and, when I was struggling. You have those moments and then you'll have Christmases and then birthdays.
Little did he know how important family tables would be later in life.
Remember that fort back in the day?
Unlike his three brothers, Jason wasn't interested in farming.
Those boys were playing in the sandpits, with the trucks and the tractors, and that never was me. And
after graduating in business and events management and a few years working in Brisbane, a jaded Jason was back home licking his wounds.
The rat race sort of got to me a bit, eat, sleep, repeat. I was a bit lost and I thought, I'll get a farm job. They actually gave me a cottage to live in, and that cottage had no furniture and I had no money. And I just thought, well, I'll just have a crack at it myself.
He posted a picture of a dog kennel on Facebook, and ever since, he's had a full book of clients. The dog kennels are long gone. He's now known for restoring old wool tables used in shearing sheds to sort and assess wool. The grain surgeon turns old wrecks into dining tables, giving them a new life as the hub of a home.
Because when they come in, they're rough as guts, like, I'll be honest with you, and you turn them around, you go, wow, that's gone from being in a wool shed to now a dining piece. Like, even the fella who made it back in the day, he would have thought, he would have laughed at me if he had a time machine and said, these were never going to be dining tables, mate.
The late bloomer is now back on the farm with his wife and 2 kids.
I live a adult fairy tale. It sounds very cringy, sorry for everyone who heard that, but it literally is what I feel I'm doing, because I love where I live, Cecil Plains. I'm lucky to have my family here. I'm living the dream here, yeah.
Parents Brett and Louise were delighted but surprised.
Well, at school he did manual arts, and his first job was, it was a dustpan, actually, it's metalwork. And it came time to give him a mark, and the teacher got the dustpan and swept off his bench and went over to the bin and tipped the lot in. So he was a bit disheartened with that. And I thought, well, he's got to do nothing with his hands, this boy.
Jason's workshop is a short walk from home. Restoration starts with what he calls the IKEA phase.
And I've pulled it apart, itemised it, and basically in its flat pack form.
And what have you had to do to the wood?
I've put it through my planers, my jointer and my thicknesser to basically square it all up again so it comes back together better than it ever did before.
Is this a bit wonky?
It was, and now this is square. That'll be square.
Yeah.
That went to the side, and then you've got obviously all your dowels just to go in there.
Some tables are so far gone, he only has the dowels to work with, or slats.
I'll get a lot of the older fellas and the bushies, and they'll say, oh, no, they never made it with slats, mate. They always use dowels. But I can tell you now, I've had so many different ones that came in. No one's ever followed a code back in the day that they had to be this and had to be that.
So is that usable? You'll be able to fix it?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it'll be no dramas.
Wool families are Jason's most common customers, entrusting him to breathe new life into their well-used tables.
And it's something I want to give to them, and it's like an heirloom, something that they can actually keep in the family, talk to their friends about, say, oh, geez, we got this fella to do this table, and something that they can hand down as well to their kids.
Removing decades of lanolin is tricky, but this one has next-level gunk. This one looks like it's been in a fire. What is this black stuff?
Oh, it is the worst one I've seen in terms of lanolin build-up.
He's facing at least a day of scraping. After that, he'll scrub each slat with a wire brush and finally a sander. So would you just throw these away and replace them, or...?
Oh, you couldn't. You couldn't. You got to keep it. Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah,
isn't it?
definitely.
They might look worthless, but even wobbly wrecks like this, bought at auction in Victoria, cost thousands. When you take it apart, do you chuck all these nails away?
Oh, no, definitely not. You got to keep it as authentic as possible, I think. And I'd hate to see new hardware in an old wool table.
As word spread on Facebook, fans who couldn't find an old table commissioned reproductions. For a vintage feel, Jason uses reclaimed wood. He has quite a collection.
These are old joists from barns that I've pulled down in the area. I've just ripped them through my table saw.
Do you see yourself as a carpenter, an artist or an artisan? What do you see yourself as?
Definitely not an artist. Definitely not an artist. It's
Sure about that?
Yes, yeah. People will say it, and I don't know what to say. I guess what I'm doing is I'm just doing something pretty basic, but I'm doing it well. I'd settle with craftsman.
This 4-metre table is the biggest Jason's ever made.
Roughly 80 hours, so 2 weeks really having a good crack at it. Yeah.
Wow. What's it worth?
If I was to retail it, I'd be aiming to around the 10 grand mark.
The glass was tricky.
I'm lucky because I've got my brothers who are working on the farm as well. So I give them a call and the old man, and we nervously put it down.
It was built to auction at the Cecil Plains Annual Golf Day, a fundraiser Jason started 3 years ago.
The bigger towns get bigger and the smaller towns are getting smaller. That's what I fear is happening for Cecil.
Current and former residents like the idea of a day of bad golf so much, the event was a sellout. Are you a good golfer?
No, pretty ordinary. My practice run this year was the same tournament last year, so it's a great day, and I'll be here for the next one, and the next one after that, as long as there's not too many serious competitors here.
Local farmer Tim Clay has one of Jason's first restorations.
I just thought it would be a great family heirloom to keep passing down, and yeah, it's fantastic. We sit around it every night. I hope it lasts forever, but yeah, it'll last me out anyway.
Half the money raised is for the town. The rest is for TAX, a free mental health service funded by sales of those bright tradie shirts.
I'm super proud of this day. It's been like a build it and they will come sort of moment. You put all this stuff on, you go, oh, is it gonna work? And yeah, today has definitely shown that it was all worth it.
You need to keep well hydrated, particularly the way you play golf.
The best sportsman there was Shane Webke, a former rugby league player who represented Queensland and Australia. His job? Purveyor of hydration. Does it make the golf better or worse?
Oh, well, it can't get worse. I've seen some horrible golf, and that's why I don't play golf. The reason I'm driving the drinks cart is because of my lack of ability at golf.
Do you really hate golf?
I hate it with a passion.
Why?
Why would you ruin a good sheep paddock by putting a golf course in there? Seriously, Pip, you understand?
He might hate golf, but Shane Webke loves what Jason's doing. Does every town need a Jason?
Yeah, I think so. And obviously, Pip, you go all over rural Australia, you know these places exist because of people like Jason. I admire him for it because I feel the same way about the little place that I'm from. And if we don't care about the little places we're from, they will disappear one day.
Playing bad golf is tiring. So with the clubs put away, it was time for everyone to catch up. Recalling his happy school days, Jason thanked the crowd for backing him.
And I feel like Cecil is declining, and I just want to say I don't think I'm saving our hometown by having a golf day, you know, but I think it's a 1%er. And I think that I'm hoping that it's a spark that might light a fire. One thing that makes a town more livable is entertainment. And we had a bloody good day today, and that's entertainment. And what that's going to go to is a projector that we can have some more movies and whatever outdoors. One thing we have up our sleeve is, the cities might have 5 stars, but we've got millions of them. And I reckon we can bloody have movies outside and bring some entertainment to Cecil Plains.
After the award for the worst team, called the Bradman, it was auction time.
Sold for $9,500.
I'm bloody relieved. I'm so glad my hard work has sort of gone to something really good, yeah.
By next year's golf day, Jason hopes to have helped Cecil Plains even more.
I want to be able to put a family on in our town to say, look, I employed him and I brought another family to Cecil. So that's where I'm headed now.
And that's the show for today. From all the team, thanks for your company. I'll leave you with the weekly weather update from the Bureau. Bye for now.
G'day from the Bureau. For Sunday, the 17th of September. Dry, sunny weather continues across much of Australia this weekend, clearly seen by the lack of cloud across much of the country, where another dry week is forecast. Not good news for those wanting rain. It also means heat is building across southern Australia, where temperatures are well above average this week. Today will continue the dry, warm, hot and sunny weather across much of the country, with just a few showers about Western Tasmania and the tropical coast of Queensland. High pressure will continue to dominate the country on Monday, bringing hot and sunny conditions with near record heat possible in parts of South Australia and New South Wales for September. Only rain will be a few showers about Tasmania, southern Victoria, coastal parts of South Australia and far north Queensland. Cooler air will filter through southern South Australia on Tuesday, bringing relief from the heat, but it will be hot across much of southeastern Australia ahead of a cold front approaching. Light showers will continue about coastal Queensland and southwest WA. The cold front will sweep across southeastern Australia on Wednesday with showers, storms, strong and gusty winds and much cooler temperatures. Elsewhere though, will be hot and sunny as high pressure continues to dominate. Showers will continue in Tasmania, Victoria and coastal New South Wales on Thursday, while heat builds in Queensland and WA. Dry, warm to hot and sunny weather will continue elsewhere. Friday and into the weekend, isolated light showers will continue about the Queensland and New South Wales coast and Western Tasmania, but dry, warm, hot and sunny weather continues elsewhere. Not good news for those looking for rain. And that's it for our weekly wrap. We'll see you again next Sunday.
Look at that.